name's Tim Walter Bach with IBB Talks. Today we're going to be talking about, are entrepreneurs made or born? I'm going to use my own story as a way to explore this idea, whether anybody can be an entrepreneur. Or are there certain qualities that you're just innately born with that will enable you to be an entrepreneur? So my story, as I analyzed and thought through this idea of whether you're born with certain attributes, I look at my life as somebody who was kind of put in a mold that I never fit in because I didn't understand what being an entrepreneur was. I went through all the education system that was available, but it really wasn't helpful to what I was ultimately going to become. Sure, all the basics were absolutely necessary, but I just was a round peg in a square hole, and maybe you feel like that sometimes. I look back at my school times and what I was taught and the process is very frustrating. But I had this other track going since I was really little. I got to thinking about when I was even in the third grade. We lived in this little bitty town, and I would walk the alleyways, go behind grocery stores, and look for pop bottles. Pop bottles used to have deposits on them, and you can turn them in for money. And when I was in the fourth grade, I started a paper route. Now, this is something that was available to young people, but still, I was very young. Now, at the time, I didn't know I was an entrepreneur. I didn't know I was doing anything out of the ordinary. It's just something that came very natural to me. If it was snowing, I was grabbing a shovel. I can remember I was in the fifth grade. This is Nebraska, so the snow was piled up high. And all we had was a coal shovel, a steel coal shovel. I didn't have the nice light aluminum ones, but here I was with my 30-pound coal shovel in the fifth grade, out knocking on doors, asking people if I could shovel their walks for 50 cents or $1. And it was just something that always came natural to me, something that I wanted. But in school, just the opposite, very unnatural to me. I was the kid always looking out the window. And so I wish I had understood who I was earlier on, and maybe that's the value of sharing my story. Maybe you're frustrated and you don't fit in the boxes that other people create for you. I was in school all the way through, I was a junior in college. I even went to a jewelry and gemology school thinking that may be it, and I'd sit behind a bench and create jewelry all day, and I spent a couple years there and didn't use that for anything. I worked one place for a while, just hated it, and then I went off to school again and up to my junior year, and one summer I started a lawn business. I picked up a mower and needed some money, and I thought, well, I can go work for somebody for a good rate at that time, probably $6-7 an hour. And I thought, well, I can do that. I can mow a lawn for 20. And so I got a mower. I borrowed money for a weed eater from my future wife. Didn't know she was going to be my future wife at the time, but she loaned me money for a weed eater, and I went up and down the streets knocking on doors like when I was a kid, asking people if I could mow their lawn. So in time, I built that business up, though. I loved just working for myself. I didn't go back to school. I finished online. I just loved building something that I could call my own, that I could set my hours. I had a friend always says, as an entrepreneur, you can work whatever hours you want. Whatever 80 hours you want to work, you can work. And so I didn't mind working long, hard hours. It was something I was building, and I built that up, got some commercial accounts, created some value, and ended up selling that business and bought a janitorial company, and then I built that up, bought a little fledgling janitorial company, Matt organized that and built that up and sold that. And then I began to see that I wasn't going to get to where I wanted to go, though, because I was doing things that anybody could do. It's always basically the law of supply and demand. And my lawn business, I was competing with other high school kids or college kids like me when I got started, and that was always going to keep the price down. So I sold everything. You know, this is another way I knew I was an entrepreneur. I wasn't afraid to take risk. I had a wife and kids, and I was responsible, and I had an idea of starting a magazine called Tulsa's Best Businesses. And it was just built on a need and an idea that I had. If you were moving to town, this would be pre-internet days, right? If you were moving to town, how would you find the best doctor or a dentist or a mechanic, or, you know, you had to start all over. And I thought, you know, if I could come up with some criteria that, you know, for my magazine, to be featured in my magazine, you know, like in the three I came up with, you had to be in business for at least 5 years, you had to have no outstanding complaints with the associations you belong to, and you're willing to give references. So it was kind of a unique approach when I went and talked to people. You know, it was more like, hey, are you worthy to be in my magazine? Without saying that, of course, but it worked. And I started this magazine and traded some, and, you know, we ate out a lot because I traded a lot. We featured a lot of the best restaurants in town. It was kind of fun. And I built that up, and that provided another opportunity. You know, this is something an entrepreneur is always looking for. You're not afraid to risk for a better opportunity. I was in my final publishing days of this magazine, and I sold a 2-page 4-color ad. That's the biggest I had. It was the back cover, to a local developer who developed really nice high-end developments for residential. You know, he'd go buy a piece of property, put the streets in, sell the lots. And I saw an opportunity there. And I developed a friendship with him. And I thought, man, if I could figure out how to build a home, I could maybe be someone who takes his lots and improves them and sells them. And so I talked to my father, and he went to the bank. I couldn't do it at the time, not that level. And we put up a spec home. I built my first spec home on one of his properties, not in one of his high-end developments, but he had some old lots. And so I took what I could. I mowed his development, you know, the entrances in the evening, just to make a little extra money. And I put everything I had in this home. And I built this modest 2,000 square foot home. And I kind of experimented with some colors, and I liked one that I saw in a house, and I didn't have the right formula, and so it turned out to be this really awful peach color. And I remember sitting on the stairs and looking at it thinking, I have totally blown it. There is no way, and I can't afford to repaint the whole house. So the next Sunday or Saturday, we had an open house. And in comes this lady with this bright yellow peach windbreaker on and yellow shirt, and she just loved it. And she bought that. And during that time, I showed it to a guy that said, well, I don't want this house, but I want to build another house. And I ended up building for him around the corner and got my custom business going. And I had been doing that since '94. So for me, it was something that I was born to do. Now, to answer the question, are you born or made, you know, there's a lot of different levels of entrepreneurship. You know, there's a guy who buys a franchise, that's an entrepreneur. And maybe you're not the type to want to just go out and start something from scratch, but you're somebody that wants to buy something, but you want the experience of building a business. So the answer is, are they made or born? I think the answer is yes. There's there's some intuitive things that you have to have, but they can be bought if you buy a franchise and learn from somebody else and their abilities. So don't be frustrated though. Don't let other people put you in boxes. Do what you're the most gifted to do and what brings you the greatest joy. And if you're willing to take the challenge and throw everything on the line and work a few extra hours, you can be an entrepreneur too. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.